Hey guys, and welcome to a video talking about a question I get asked very often. That is from those that ask why Nyx is my favourite frame out of all of the frames in the game. Well, to be honest, the reason Nyx is my favourite actually comes from the fact that about 3.5 years ago when I first started the game, she was the first frame that I farmed to be able to get hold of. A friend of mine got me into the game and I started with X-Gal as my starter frame, but I wanted to change to Nyx as soon as possible. I'd seen her powers and knew that she was going to be the type of frame that I would enjoy. Once I finally got hold of her, built her, I got the old school bolter back when it had armor ignore, and then basically used pretty much that and nothing else for probably the next 6-8 months. But 3 years on, she is still my favourite frame, despite tons of frames coming out in that time. And why is that? Well, it comes down to the fact I still love her skill set. I use 3 of the 4 abilities on a constant basis, plus she has more synergies than a lot of frames do in terms of certain specialist mods. Take my build for example. This is my standard build. It's changed a little bit from before. I've got whatever aura I need at the time. It's the dash aura, so I can put, energy siphon in there. I can go with corrosive projection. I've got cunning drift and overextended for range on chaos and also for assimilate. I have assimilate on there alongside both vitality and quick thinking as my high level survivability. Got quick thinking as just a buffer just in case. It just gives me that time to get into my absorb. I've got fleeting and streamline on there for efficiency, prime flow for energy storage, prime continuity for duration for both mind control and chaos. This build gives me both the range and duration I need to make chaos and mind control work amazingly, but also the survivability to not die immediately in higher level combat. What is it about those abilities I love so much, I can hear you asking? Well, let's take mind control to start with. It's a simple ability, but one that is hugely effective. It's actually an ability that scales with the content we've got in the game, which many do not. Taking a single high priority enemy, turning them to your side, it's a really cheap way of getting some crowd control if you don't have enough energy for chaos, but also you get the enemy's damage output as well. Turn a high damage unit like a bombard or a napalm onto your side, and you have increased your damage output by quite a bit, whilst having that extra bit of health for the enemy to burn through, since they're likely to shoot the target you're mind controlled. More than that though, everybody knows that for the Corpus, the Bursary is one of the toughest units to take down because they turn to face you and the shield on the front sort of blocks your damage. That's no problem for a mind control Nyx. Just mind control the Bursa, they become your friend, and then you either keep them fighting with you with their decent damage output and their ability to tank, or you just go up behind them and shoot them in the back. Then either release your mind control to kill them, or let the timer run out and let the enemy die that way, getting the most out of its damage. Either way, mind control is a far more useful skill than most people give it credit for, and it's actually one that I use pretty often. Chaos though, that's pretty much the staple of any Nyx. The ability to change the targeting priority of any enemy in a huge area, cause them all to fight themselves. It's actually severely underrated and can be insanely useful to draw fire away from your team if they're struggling to be able to take a hit. It also takes fire away from Nyx herself, allowing her to rely solely, not rely solely on Assimilate at higher level for her survivability. Now, you could say that Irradiating Disarm does what Chaos does, but actually does it better. But Chaos for the most part allows the enemies to keep their weapons, and that keeps their damage output on enemy units. That means they're actually shooting each other, so that means not only that Chaos has insane crowd control, but also actually does a ton of damage as well, while occasionally removing weapons from enemy hands. But it's really Absorb, or more specifically Assimilate, that's really changed Nyx from being one of the best crowd control frames in the game into one that has so many synergies it's unreal. Absorb was always an ability, it was kind of niche. It didn't really work that well in groups, because by the time you built up some damage to be able to release, your team had killed everything. Although it worked pretty decently solo, because that wasn't really a problem. Enter Assimilate. That allows you to do everything you would normally do, but you're tied down to a walking pace, and then you have a reduced bubble size as well. This gives Nyx so many more uses and niches and more fun to her playstyle, that she can be good in almost any situation. Not to mention that you can still drop in and out of Absorb for the knockdown that it does. Take for example though, the Guardian Derision mod. That allows Nyx to taunt every single enemy in the area onto her, drawing all the fire away from your team. Without Assimilate, this mod would be a waste on Nyx. She'd be annihilated instantly. I, for example, use her for public Kuva farming to draw the Guardians onto me, where either the team can deal with those Guardians safely, or they ignore them and just get the Kuva, leaving me to keep the Guardians occupied. Or in a sortie where you've got to defend the target, drop into absorb, use Guardian Derision to bring the fire onto you instead of the target, and it can make these sortie style missions so much easier. You could even combine Guardian Derision with another mod I like a lot, and that's on my main melee weapon, the Akam Brunt, and that's electromagnetic shielding, which will link Nyx to all the allies within 12 meter radius, directing 50% of the damage taken by your allies onto yourself. But because you're in Assimilate, it's basically you're just taking the damage straight onto your Assimilate rather than onto Nyx directly. So not only can you use Guardian Derision to bring all the enemy fire onto yourself, you can link to friendly units around, halving their damage taken by anything that isn't taunted to you. And that includes to their operator as well when they're in transference mode, so you can help them stay alive a little bit longer as well with that. In case though you want my Akam Brunt build, to be honest, it's not entirely optimal because of the fact I need 2 mod slots for Guardian Derision and the electromagnetic shielding. I run Pressure Point on there, Blood Rush, Organ Shatter, I've got Berserker, double 90% Elementals, Guardian Derision and electromagnetic shielding. You could go with the normal crit mod instead of Blood Rush, but I find combos aren't that hard to build up. It just feels just fine to me, to be honest, even without the combo increasing mod like body count. But if you can't really care about, you know, electromagnetic shielding, wish to go for more mobility, you can go with the Twin Berserk. I need to rethink my Twin Berserk build after Condition Overload became a thing. Right now, my build is built with Prime Pressure Point, Prime Fury, Body Count, Guardian Derision, Rift Strike and 3 dual stat elementals. More than likely I'm going to add another V polarity on there, switch out a dual stat for Condition Overload for even more damage. But it's that Rift Strike that's the most important thing about this build. What this does is that when you do a charge attack on an enemy, you will teleport to them and do a charge attack on them. This can give an Assimilate Nyx so much maneuverability around the battlefield without ever having to drop out of her Assimilate bubble. It's an interesting use of the mod, and honestly I think it's the only time I've ever seen it used in game is with a Nyx using it like this. Even my Arcanes though are focused around getting the most out of what I'm using at the time, synergizing with Assimilate. For example, I have Arcane Energize on there. I've got more energy from the blue orbs, keep my energy fueled at all times. But because you take a huge volume of fire as Nyx, I have a Max Arcane Avenger on her helmet for another 30% more critical chance. And that's something that I can find such a huge increase in damage. And actually it's very easy to proc when you're using her Assimilate. But you know what? The abilities are fantastic, the endless synergies, the icing on the cake though, that comes with the fact that Nyx and her Prime have something else to them. They both look incredible. Whether it's the standard Prime, Nemesis or Athena skin, she looks amazing and that just tops it all off for me. My favourite looking frame in the game with an awesome skill set to go with her. But even better than that, after all of the good things and all the videos that multiple creators have done, she's still underestimated. She's not an insane killer, but if you love being a support player, Nyx will suit you down to the ground. So I hope that I've helped you guys understand why Nyx will always certainly be my favourite frame. She's not the quote-unquote best frame in the game, but she's the one I go back to whenever I want to get something done. I still play other frames when the situation calls for it, but I always go back to Nyx every single time. I'd be interested to hear if you've got a frame like that in the comments below, and why you like the frame you do. However, for now, thank you all so much for watching, and I shall see you in the next video.